Here on the EquiRatings Eventing podcast, we have teamed up with our great friends at Bedmax, along with our very own Spike the Vet, to bring you lovely listeners some tip-top tips on keeping your horses happy and healthy in the stable environment. So, Spike, what have you got for us?
Well, this time, Nicole, is something that is really, really important, and it's something that people either are worried about or really should be worried about. And that's that risk of your horse testing positive for prohibited substances. And what's really exciting about Bedmax is that they are the first bedding company to be what's called NOPS accredited.
What is NOPS?
NOPS stands for naturally occurring prohibited substances. And those are things such as, a very easy, simple one would be morphine, which is found in poppy seeds. And it's the sort of substance that can become a contaminant in feeds or in bedding or in supplements and things like that. And there's a whole host of them. And companies will sign up to the NOPS accreditation that is run by BETA. And whereas a lot of feed companies and supplement companies follow this accreditation, Bedmax are the first brand for bedding to be in a position to be able to have this accreditation. And that's just such a wonderful peace of mind for horse owners to know that they're not going to get a nasty surprise after they've won their first novice and their horse has been blood tested afterwards and they find that they're positive for something. And that is excellent peace of mind and really, really important horsemanship as well.
I love that. That is so, so true, so important, and better safe than sorry. There you go, listeners. A tip-top tip for you. There'll be more coming soon.
Thanks, Nicole. More tip-top tips coming soon.
Now, listeners, today's guest on When Nicole Met, brought to you once again in 2024 by Bedmax, is a man who is an internet sensation. Tom Crisp, how has winter been treating you?
Internet sensation. Yeah, all for the wrong reasons. But anyway, we'll come back to that. Winter, yeah, they get longer. It's cold at the moment, so we're all trying to find motivation, aren't we, to go out there and ride some horses.
What is your biggest winter motivator? What's your biggest top tip? What can't you live without in winter to survive?
I mean, we're very lucky. We do have an indoor school. We lose the outdoor to frost, which a lot of people do. It happens to them as well. So we're lucky to have an indoor, so we can keep working pretty much all year round. We don't have any snow days here. Yeah, I think the winter's important. And we were talking a minute ago on how quickly the season comes round. And you need the winter months to do the basics and the preparation and the little things well. And then you can hopefully hit the ground running in March.
Do you still get that sort of post-Christmas pre-season buzz of like the excitement and the anticipation?
Arguably, not so much anymore, no. But to be honest, it's kind of, you're conditioned to it now. I think I've been doing it 28 years and I know what's involved to get horses ready for the season, and you just click into gear. I'd love to be able to say I'm out there as enthusiastic as I was riding 6 when my toes are about to drop off. But, you know, sometimes it is just that. It can be a chore. But however, you know, it's the same with any walk of life or job that you do. For us, it's getting out there and doing long hacks and hardening the horses up in sub-minus temperatures. It's not always fun, but, you know, at the end of the day, I don't see myself doing anything else. And I far more enjoy working with horses in conditions like that than I would do any people in an office, that's for sure.
In any conditions, Tom, in any conditions, yeah. Take us back 28 years, you just said there, you know, that's a long old time in the game. What drove you to become an event rider?
Do you know what? I used to dream about being the best event rider in the world. You know, it really was what motivated me to get out of school, go and work on yards, go and base myself as a working pupil in as many different professionals as I could. And I still, although I joke about it, there is that kid in me still that feels I want to be the best event rider in the world. Now, that might not mean you go and ever win an Olympics or World Championships, but for me, as long as I'm getting the best out of my team of horses, what I'm riding at the time, and myself, then, you know, it's a small victory. But you hold on to that hope, and you see things like Austin, who won last year, his first 5-star, and something like that for me was a real treat, and it sort of motivated me an awful lot more to see somebody like him who we've known since growing up on the circuits, pushing on and digging deep. And then all of a sudden his time came. And it's a sport like that. I think it's when it's your time, it's your time. And if you can stick at it through these tough times, these cold winters, and the breaks and the falls and, the difficult times that you get within the sport that we're all familiar about, then it is still worth it. 100%.
It's really interesting, that perspective of, being the best event rider in the world doesn't actually necessarily mean winning all of the big events. It's about actually getting the best out of the horses that you're working with and getting the best out of what you are doing. I think that's a really important point to note as well. You mentioned there working pupil positions and influences on your career. Looking back, were there any particular influences?
Yes. So I left school and I joined like local yards and relatively unknown riders. But I learned a lot. I learned how a yard worked because I didn't have a family yard myself as such. But I learned how a competition yard worked, and I saw how different people did things and opened my eyes to a few techniques. And then I think I went to Ireland. I remember going to Ireland, I think, as an 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old. And I worked down in County Waterford in a little town called Woodstown with Neelis O'Donoghue and the Connor family, who were the show jumpers, and Neelis and his wife at the time were eventing. And that was an eye-opener. I learned to jump. I learned to ride lots of horses. I learned to hunt. I learned to survive on horseback. And that was, it was hard work. I remember 7 days a week solidly for 6 or 7 months that I was there. But I got to compete out there, and that really gave me a boost up into what was expected.
It's interesting, isn't it? That sort of foundation and that groundwork feels like actually something that, while it's hard at the time, becomes invaluable in terms of not only the resilience, but actually the becoming a horseman. Is
exactly.
that fair?
That's true. And I don't think there's any other way. I don't think there's any easy way of doing it. And I say now I'm probably one of the best horsemen I've ever been. As you get older, you understand more, you mellow a little bit, you're able to sort of take a step back and see the bigger picture. But at the time you're young, you're hot-headed, and you just want results, which, there's no fast tracking it. But like you said, it teaches you resilience, perseverance, hard work, and they're often the keys to success.
When you look at being a horseman now and your philosophy, what is it that is really important? What are your non-negotiables?
What's important? I think striking up a good partnership with them. I think understanding their strengths and their weaknesses, having the ability to adjust your training program and the way you ride your horses and your routine to focus on those strengths and weaknesses in the horse. And like people, they're all different. And some come down into the school like every day's a new day, and others come down like, oh no, not this again. So you've got to be able to tailor your sessions and your workouts. And I look at them a lot as if I'm their personal trainer and their coach. And some of them, you just need to identify where some struggle and just tailor your training to suit it.
A psychologist as well, personal trainer.
Yeah,
like personal dietitian, psychologist, a lot. Yeah. Going back to sort of the early days of your career, one of the highlights would have been a silver medal at the Young Rider European Championships in 1999. What was that experience like, and how did that then shape actually your future?
Well, I think everybody dreams of being on a team, whether ponies, young riders, juniors. They are a great setup to give you a foothold in the teams and understand how the competition and the eventing works. And for me, I had little understanding, and I remember I think it was Will Connell was the chef de keep, and Jill Watson was the team trainer. Bob Baskerville was part of the setup as well, and they're people you never forget. David Merritt, he was a great. I'm a great fan of his, and he supported me well through those years. But it was a great time. I ended up, it was a horse we picked up off the back of a trailer, I think, from Ireland. It was sort of 1,800 quid, and a funny, quirky, again, little 15-3 mare that I just persevered with, and and worked hard on, and somehow we managed to do not only the Young Rider Europeans, where we got a team silver, but we also was runner-up silver medalist in the national championships at Bramham, and she was the first horse I did a Burley on back in, I think, 2000, where it remained a long format. So that was something else to say, that as a young rider on a little 15-3 mare, to do something like a Burley all the way back then.
And actually, not being very old, stepping up to 5-star and having that kind of horse that takes you all the way is kind of the dream, isn't it? You know, but actually getting to 5-star and staying at 5-star are two totally different things. How was it then, actually, when you've been to 5-star, you've got that taste of success, building a string, actually then to go on and have regular appearances and success at that level?
It's a good point. I don't really know how. I think it goes back to knowing what your horse is capable of and making sure that you prepare a horse, but you've got to be careful not to over prepare a horse. And the secret, and I'm still learning this now, and you'll talk to a lot of other professionals, it's knowing how much is too much and what's not enough. And we talk about getting horses that not only to get them up to that level is few and far between, but to hold them at that level takes a lot of hard work, and not just from us, from all of the team that are involved, from farriers to physios to your vets who work really hard to keep these athletes on the road for us.
Is there almost a case of your naivety as a young rider? And I don't mean you specifically, I mean sort of generally, those young rider horses that go on to the 5-star level. Some of them aren't the stereotypical 5-star horse on paper.
No.
If that horse came along, then, you know, where you are in your career now, or where another rider would be in sort of 15, 20 years time, that actually that 5-star might not happen because you almost know too much?
Well, if I was presented with that mare that I said I did young riders in my first 5-star, wouldn't get on her. Probably wouldn't touch her with the barge pole. It was just one of those partnerships that she gave it her everything, trusted me. I worked well with her, but no, didn't tick very few boxes as far as a horse that was capable of doing long format 5-stars and jumping those big fences. But she had a big heart, and I honestly think 95% of it is all what they have in between the ears.
Same to be said for the person on top?
Oh, very little between years when it comes to when you ride at that level. You can't be an intelligent chap, you know.
Fast forward a few years, Cooley's Luxury, who is a horse that I think most people will very much always put you with him.
There he is, on the wall over here.
Oh, there we go. Pictures, all the pictures. If you're listening to this, we won't see it. If you're watching it, you will see a very, very fancy Chesterfield sofa and lots of lovely photos, including Cooley's Luxury, who, I mean, he was such a star for you. I was just looking at his record. He started, I think, 13 5-stars. He was top 25 at Burley a couple of times, at Le Moulin, at Badminton. I mean, he's just been, in fact, his Burley record is absolutely extraordinary because he had a good number of Burley starts and a good number of top 20 placings as well. He has just been the most incredible horse for you. Tell us a bit about how he first came into your life and what your first impressions of him were.
So again, he wouldn't be a stereotypical 5-star horse. He was quite a heavy horse. He had a huge movement, big jump, wouldn't be the most economical moving horse, which is really what I struggled with when it came to making the meters per minute and the times at the higher levels. But we bought him. I had a fantastic set of owners who I miss so much still now, called Claire and David Corney, who were supporters of mine for probably 10 years back then. And they bought a number of horses, and he was one that we bought. I think they went out and bought me one of my most ever expensive horses, having just done 2-star with Joe Rimmer, I believe. Anyway, I picked him up. He was rambunctious. He was strong. He would miss the odd skinny fence. And I remember Joe telling me he wasn't the easiest horse cross country because he just had a let me at it attitude. He was a kind of jump first, think later kind of chap, and would often jump himself into trouble on the combinations. So again, it was just recognizing where his good bits were and his weak bits were, and getting your head down and working on them. But I struck a good partnership up with him. I found what made him work or what made him tick. And once I think you get that acceptance of that partnership and that acceptance of the rider, they love their job and they love to please for you. They love to do it. And I truly do believe that. Since then, we've had some very, very good results. And nearly maybe. I feel that sort of sums me up, at the moment. And horses like Cooley, who these stats are great. That one of the stats I think you produced last year before I went to Burley was my clear round success rate at Burley on all the horses. And I'm like, oh, blimey, that is quite good. But Pi just thinks, what does it take? How far are you, or do you need to be to just break that top 3 or top 5? And to be honest, I look back and my life goal and ambition when I was a kid, as well as being the world's best event rider, was just to be top 10 at Burley. I didn't have massive aspirations, and I achieved that, didn't I, 2 years ago on Liberty and Glory, and I just felt like it was a win for me. I remember you probably have me saying it before, but it really felt like a win. I felt like that was my ambition. That's really what I really, really wanted to achieve. And I never thought I was going to achieve it that year, having broke my ribs. I think it was 3 weeks before getting there and being a bit underprepared. But goals are a funny thing. You've got to have your ambition. You've got a dream, but having come top 10, just over a year ago now, I'm thinking, well, actually top 5's not unachievable now, is it? So you never know. It's Burley's been very, very good to me, and I love that event. We used to holiday back there as kids. I think that's why it's so special on the golf course. We used to camp with my mum and dad and go to the joke shop and never even look at a horse, but we had a great time as kids on our bikes, just on a camping holiday.
And not the horse trials, just
my mum and dad, we were interested in the horses, but I at that age not really much concept of what they were doing. And my mum and dad would go and watch the dressage bit or the show jump or something, and we would watch the odd horse gallop past. But yeah, it was just a fun camping holiday, and we used to sort of walk the odd fence. I was riding a 12-2 naughty little farewell pony at that time, I'm sure, and we used to say, we could jump this one. Maybe we could jump that one. But yeah, it's easy when you're not actually there competing to jump them.
You came pretty close to a top 10, actually. You were 11th in 2014 with Cooley, which must have felt quite agonisingly close.
Agonisingly close, that nearly maybe again. Yeah, that was a very special moment. And when he does a personal best dressage and a double clear and galloped his heart out and left nothing out there, then you can't complain. Complain. He was brilliant.
In terms of goals and mindset, that top 10 at Burley, which stems from your childhood and kind of drove you being an event rider, is obviously quite a long-term goal. And that's now altered. Top 5. Watch this space, listeners. We heard it here first. How much does sort of goal setting and mindset play a part in your career? Would that be something you think a lot about?
Yeah, I think if you don't have a goal and you don't have an action plan, then it just becomes a daydream. So you have to have this ambition, because it is what fuels you and drives you in any walk of life, whether it's sport, work, in any other sport. If you don't have ambition and goals, then why are you doing it? And it might be to earn lots of money. It might be to, win a race or drive fast, whoever you are. I mean, I love Ronnie O'Sullivan. I mean, he's just won the Masters, I think, for the 9th time, and he was the youngest and the oldest. And he's just another inspiration of somebody who's just somehow just got this, because you can't quite switch off the mindset to want to win and want to win. And he's so, he's a remarkable sportsman, and it's a totally different sport to aggressionism. But I think mindsets are very similar.
Do you follow a lot of other sports and other sports people
I do.
inspire you a lot?
I've loved sport. I mean, I was a gymnast, I think, for 10 years when I was younger, till I was about 12. And that taught you discipline and hard work and dedication. So I've always loved sport. Yeah. I've always been a sporty person, and I do enjoy watching sport.
Please tell me one of your old gymnastics moves is now your party trick.
It used to be. I'm probably getting a little bit too old now, but I did used to double leg circle on tables and backflip off them when I was a little bit younger. And there's probably a few people that tell you a story or two on the circuit that witnessed it once upon a time.
Probably Buccleuch.
Yeah.
Who knows? What about your setup and your yard and your team at home now? Because actually, we'll talk about family in a second, but they've been a massive part of your journey and your career. So what is life in your yard and team like now?
Well, we're lucky because we are supported by a set of parents. And if you look at a lot of riders, even now, I think would find it very difficult without having some backup of top owners or sets of parents, because it's a tough game to earn a living out of. But we're lucky. We've got some facilities here. We also run, as part of the setup, a small breeding program. So Noel runs a stud, and which we have now, I think, 1 or 2 offspring of Liberty and Glory coming through, which is quite exciting. And and a good team of people. It's a team sport. You can't do it on your own. Although you're out there on your own, it's taken a whole bunch of us to get you out there riding.
And actually, your wife Sophie is a big part of it as well. And
she's a sensible one.
She's the sensible one. Every marriage needs a sensible one.
Yeah.
It's fine. Probably normally the wives. Who knows? That was very stereotypical, wasn't it? I'll get the male in now. But what role has she played in your success?
I mean, it's a bit of an old cliche, but she is really sort of very down to earth. She's got an eye for a good horse. She knows how to do a day's work as well. She looked after me. She's helped set up the business. She's a partner in the business, and of course, mother of the three great kids. But she's out there now every morning mucking 6 out. She rides some ponies, she rides a couple of horses, and now the kids have got a bit older and gone back to school. It's really nice to have her back out there again, because we missed her from when she's been off busy bringing up kids and things.
And the kids are now how old?
Harry's just turned 16. Hermione's just turned 5, and we've got young Hugo in the middle, 13ish, I think.
13ish. We'll take 13. So Harry is just turned 16, and he actually is kind of making his own path in the eventing world. What is it like being dad? Are you coach as well? How do you find it? Is that more nerve-wracking?
It's not actually. I really enjoy having him around, and I have tried to put him off, I must say. One of those things where you know what's coming your way, you know how difficult it is. And I've said, look, here's a tennis racket. Honestly, I'll pay for the fanciest tennis racket you ever could wish for, and we'll join the fancy clubs. No. So it's been a bit reverse psychology, and he's dug in, and he'll ride before school without being asked. He'll ride after school. He comes with me and he grooms, and he's a hard worker, and he really gets it. And that's what I like, is he understands the horse. Whenever something goes wrong, he's the first to look at himself and go, I did that, I didn't do that quite right. And if he's not listening, I do like having him around, and particularly at the events. And he's a very, very good rider. I mean, he's lucky in some ways, and people will say that because he's now brought up in a yard with parents who've ridden at top level. I didn't have that, and I can now help him to avoid the pitfalls which I avoided. It still doesn't stop him learning the hard way. Only a week ago, he fell off. He broke his collarbone. So, like his grandfather, his uncle, myself, he's followed a long line of riders who have fallen off and broken their collarbones on horses. He kind of feels it's passage now, and he's a proper rider that he's fallen off and broken his collarbone. But he's not been a very good patient, and he's cribbing and box walking plenty.
You say he's lucky, and I appreciate that, everything that you say there. But actually, there is also a level of expectation, and people expect a certain degree because you're Tom Crisp's son, and people know who you are in the industry, and actually they'll look at him and expect the same. Is that something that he's aware of or mindful of? Or
I think so. And of course, social media and all those kind of things puts even more pressure, I think, on kids. But he also knows, like I said before, there is no shortcut, and he has to learn the hard way. And I've been very clear to him that I don't ride his horses for him. I will help him to ride his horses, but I'm not going to be one of those parents who produces his horses for him. So what you see out there, what he's ridden, is what he's achieved through my guidance of understanding and knowing a little bit more than, as I say, my parents did.
But then there is always the balance. You've got to listen to your parents, even with
Yeah.
parents. Yeah. My dad was a dairy farmer, knew nothing about horses, but would occasionally take me to lessons and things like that. And it always annoyed me immensely when he'd come out with obviously everything that he'd heard other people say, but in a totally the appropriate time and totally the appropriate place. And I'd be like, damn it, he's right.
Yeah. The normal things I hear Dad say is, why did it do that then? So you hear that a lot, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
In terms of the breeding, obviously, family side of things, next generation of event riders right there. But the horses, Liberty and Glory, was actually one of the horses bred by your mother and father-in-law. Is that right? So she
right.
kind of comes from home as well. Tell us a little bit about her and actually your first impressions of her. Sort of when was she earmarked for you? Was she ever earmarked for you?
Oh, well, no, not at all. Sophie rode her mother, called Little Running Mead. It took it to advanced, I think, level. So Sophie took the mare on to start with and rode her, I think, till she was at least 6 years old, up through the early levels. And she had difficulty with her. I remember seeing her wouldn't get past fence one. It would just not come out. She wouldn't come out of the start box. When you take her cross country schooling, she'd actually just sit down. I saw her just lie down once, and that was only just trying to get her to go out of the lorry park, nowhere near a fence. And she was a horse you could never tell, but she was very talented. She always moved well. She had a great, sharp, snappy jump, a nice look to her. But my goodness, you couldn't get her to do anything if she didn't want to. And Sophie kept asking, well, why don't you try her? Why don't you try her? We swap around a few horses and you try this one, I try this one. And I was like, no, thanks. No, you can keep that one.
You can keep her.
You can keep that one. But luckily I did try her, and actually quite early on I clicked with her, and she was a horse where you didn't wear spurs, you didn't have a stick. And if she got worried about something, you almost just got hold of her rather than fueled her anxiety by trying to sort of click and kick and say, get on with it. You just said, I've got you, you're okay. And that was really the turning point for her. Was I would just get on and just hold her hand a bit tighter. And then she learned to go forwards and learned to travel and learned to jump. And it's quite ironic because you watch her go cross country now. And for me, I just think she's one of the best cross country horses because she just has a fantastic attitude towards it. For a little horse, her ears are pricked. She looks for the next fence. She's like, oh, let me at it. Just let me at it. So I love riding her cross country, but in the beginning, not easy. So don't give up. But those quirky mares, they're the good ones.
Once you find the code, you're in.
Yes, exactly.
Does she do any of that now?
No,
or is she settled completely?
Never ever again. Never did it again. Never ever. So I think I took her around some unaffiliated hunter trial at Breitling down near us, and sort of wobbled our way around, and then after that, I don't think I ever looked back.
Sophie ever try and steal her back?
No. And I thought, oh no, she's going to want her back now. And she said she clicks with you, gets on with you, leave her with, keep doing what you're doing. And she's really much enjoyed just watching her and being part of it as well.
It must be pretty special for the whole family to kind of be part of her journey, having known where she's come from. And actually, you mentioned that top 10 at Burley last, it was 2022. She was top 15 last year, 2023. But it feels very much like, she's kind of established at that very, very top level now. That top 5 doesn't feel all that far away. What will be the plan with her for next year?
She's no spring chicken, but she's come out really well this winter, and it's entirely down to her. If she's keen, comes out, feels good, and storms around her training events, a Poplar and a Thorsby, then she comes out well and is loving it. Then we'll be aiming for Badminton. Badminton's in the back of the mind. It'd be great to get back there again. So fingers crossed, all goes well with her planning and preparation.
Watch this space. Have to talk about Badminton because we said at the start of the show, tongue-in-cheek, internet sensation. You did go slightly viral at Badminton last year. I know. For swimming in the lake. I mean, it wasn't the reason you would have wanted it to be viral. No. And if only I owned the rights to that video, eh? But what goes through your mind at that moment? You're at Badminton, tough Badminton, in conditions that actually I would say, relish. Jumped the fence. You'd had or were having a hernia operation or something. So was that right? You weren't quite where you wanted to be fitness.
That's the embarrassing part of the whole fall is I look like one of those pony club kids on a farewell pony with their legs out with distance between me and the saddle. I just got bounced off. The big issue was I couldn't grip with my knee. I couldn't particularly grip well with my leg. And while I was in balance and having a great ride and jumping everything away wanted to, the moment I just added that stride, a little trip in the water, I just pulled myself off onto my knee. And then when the mare I thought would just roll over the fence somehow found this huge jump and bounced me clean out of the saddle, I thought, no, I'm not going to stick this. And I landed and I was so confident. And I shouldn't probably say that. I was so confident. I even took my air jacket off. I thought I was going to take my air jacket off. I'm going to reduce my weight. The ground conditions were difficult. I wanted to be as light as possible. I lost nearly a stone to get there. I thought this was going to be my one. Tough conditions. It wasn't a dressage competition. Yeah, this is my opportunity. And of course, no one else sees it that way. And certainly fate doesn't and throws you in the water. What else are you to do other than to style it out? And the thing is, you can't ever stop enjoying it. And I remember that day was getting a bit serious, wasn't it? And I look at people and think, are you even enjoying this? You see people in the morning on Saturday morning and they look like they're about to throw up, and some already have. And, they're very nervous. It's good to get nervous. But at the end of the day, you wouldn't be so nervous if it wasn't all of those people that come to watch you. And it is such a big spectacle. It is badminton. So you're out there to perform for those people as well as try and ride your horse to the best you can. So I think I looked at it like, well, you got to put a show on, whether you win, lose or draw. People don't care as long as you put a good show on and a good show of horsemanship. And I think, my moment of madness, which was paddling in the water, will stick with me forever.
It's one of those things, though, you make a really good point about you've got to put a show on. And actually, eventing, I think we sometimes lack that kind of entertainment factor. It is a serious sport and there's a danger attached to it, but you've got to have fun with it because they're the moments that the non-horsey people all of a sudden are paying attention to badminton.
Yep. Absolutely, and that's why the crowds develop around the water, don't they? That's why all the trade stands are there, because they're hoping somebody's going to dunk in the water.
You'll be in the highlights reel for a very long time.
For a very long. That was another goal of mine, to make the highlights reel.
There you go.
But
you're in it. You're in it, and they're not going to get you out anytime soon. To be honest, you could have led the dressage with an 18 and all the rest of it. That could be surpassed and moved and changed. They're not going to do that. I would also say it's that moment, you've kind of touched upon the hard work, the graft that had gone into that badminton as well as your entire career to get to that point. And actually you feel like you've got a great chance. The mare's in great form. Conditions are in your favor. It's not going to be a dressage competition. All of those things coming together, you're feeling really good. In that split second when things don't go to plan, that says a lot about a person because you can't make that up. You can't mask it. It is purely gut reaction. And actually, I think that gave people a real insight into your character as well. It's not that you don't take it seriously, but actually you have to enjoy the sport.
Yeah, and I think deep down I've always been a bit of a show off and a performer. As I said, I don't think I've never fallen off that horse at all, even at competition. So that was why I was so confident about taking it on. And to fall off for the first time in one of the world's most iconic fences in that way was, it's nuts, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy. But I don't know what came over me. I thought, well, I'm defeated. I'm defeated here. This is it. I'm off. There's no point in getting up and throwing your stick away and effing and blinding. It's just one of those things. And the horse did nothing wrong. She got up and trotted away and turned around, looked at me and go, "What are you doing?" And that's the frustrating part, is that I let her down that time. But as I said, I eventually got my hernias fixed about a month later, and that was after I took another fall at Tweezledown a couple of weeks after badminton, where again I just rolled off the side because I couldn't grip particularly well, and this time I tore my pectoral major off in that fall. So I thought, look, come on, I can't keep doing this. So I went ahead and got a double hernia repair.
Hernias aren't the most fun thing to recover from. Injury in general as an event rider, it isn't the easiest thing. You say jokingly Harry is box walking and weaving and he's just broken a collarbone. How did you find the rehab?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a great patient. You only need to ask Sophie about that. But you can always do something. I take rehab quite seriously. And rehab is more mindset than anything else. So I made sure I just put a program of work in. I did what I could. I kept doing what I could do. I can teach. I can help people on the ground. So it's keeping busy and keeping to the routine as best as you can. Yeah.
Outside of eventing, another massive part of your life over the last 10, 15 years has actually been your role as a retained firefighter. Tell us how you got into that. Where did that come about? Is it something you've always been interested in?
No, not at all. I had a mate of mine who was in the service, and it's a little local station up here in our village that was threatening to be closed because it wasn't manned enough. So I went along and went through the process and did an interview and went for a trial and failed. I failed at it. I didn't pass the interview and I didn't pass the what was required on the initial outset. I thought, hang on, I don't fail anything.
I don't fail at anything.
Yeah. So I went,
give me the exam again.
I thought this is good. This is clearly quite difficult. So I'm going to go back and give it a proper go. And then ever since I really looked back, it gives you a bit of structure. I think when you work on your own, and you work out in the yard, and you work with animals and don't see a lot of people, you can easily lose touch a little bit with reality. And I think what the fire service did for me was it taught me a lot. It's a very humbling and rewarding job, and they're a great bunch of people in which I work with. And it's a real good distraction. And I think what's kept me fresh in the sport and working with the horse for so long is important to have something that you can just get your mind away from.
So how does it work? Are you committed to a certain amount of time, or because obviously you have to travel a lot with the eventing? So how does it fit in?
Well, they're very good. I provide, say, 80 hours a week cover, which seems quite a lot. So I would ride with my pager on. Every time I'm at home, I'm on call. And there's been a number of times where I'm on a horse and I'll come galloping up from the school and go, grab my horse, I've got a call, and I'll jump in the car and I have to be at station and turn out within 5 minutes, which I'm able to do. So I'm my own boss, unless I'm teaching or unless I'm at a show, they're very flexible. I can book off as long as I provide those core hours over the quarter period, then I'm okay.
It's a massive part of the local community as well. And actually kind of the worst nightmare of any event rider, and you had a fire at your yard, didn't you?
That's right.
5 years ago now, 2018, I think.
That's right. Yes. I think I was out with Liberty and Glory doing one of her first 5 stars at Lemunan at the time. And I remember Sophie FaceTiming me at midnight in the lorry. I was watching our stables burn down. That's a bit of an eye-opener and a shocker. And luckily, all the horses were out at that time of year. But yeah, we lost all of the top stables and barn and garages and shed, and it was a worrying time. Yeah,
it's interesting as well because you kind of see a whole different perspective on sport, and you see a different perspective on kind of your livelihood at the end of the day, because actually you chase top results and event riders are looking for the badmintons, the burleys, etc., but actually there's so much more in life and that was kind of a prime example, and I'm sure you see massive examples of that in your day-to-day work with the fire service.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it is just a horse show.
It is. What drives you now? Is it that top 5 at Burley? Is there anything else on the bucket list?
Good, nice horses, good horses. Working with great horses and great owners. That's what does it. That's what it's easy. My job's easy. You've got a horse who's super talented and loves working and is a pleasure to work with, then it's not a hardship, not always a hardship. And yeah, I mean, I love the eventing. I mean, I love it and I hate it. Sometimes it makes me laugh. It makes me want to cry. I get frustrated about it. I get excited about it. But what other sport does that to you? And it's very, very difficult to put down. And it's a purpose. It gives me a purpose, and I think everybody needs to have a purpose and an identity. And me, riding horses all my life since I've left school and being part of the eventing circuit and knowing an awful lot of great people out there is a reward in itself.
Liberty and Glory, fingers crossed, back to Badminton, fingers crossed back to Burghley at the end of the year as well. But have you got any other horses in your yard that our listeners should keep an eye out for in 2024?
I could do with a few more Liberties and Glories, like we all could. I've got a nice horse who finished at Blenheim 9-year-olds called Dasset Rockstar.
Yep.
That's right. He's an exciting young horse owned by Helen Smith. I've got another really nice one that did the 7-year-olds at Cornbury. Finished the season with a nice double clear at 3-star called, it's a really long descriptive name, Obus Quality 16. We're in the process of changing that. But she's half owned by Mr. Nick Boyle and Gabrielle Boyle. And I really like her. She's another sort of feisty, tough mare. So I've got high hopes for that one. And then I've got a couple of nice young horses that are coming through. Picked up a new ride called La Chain Jack over the winter, who's at intermediate 3-star level, so I'm really excited about that. But at the same time, I lost a really nice 3-star horse to Canada called SDX Mex, but that's swings and roundabouts. That's how the game works, and he's doing brilliantly out there, and I wish him all the best, and it'd be exciting to see how he gets on out there in the States.
Well, look, watch this space for this year. Tom, thank you. It has been a pleasure and a real insight into your correct mindset and hard work, I think, are the two things that stick out for me. You say there's nothing in there, Tom. Absolutely, 100%. I think our listeners will agree that there's plenty going on, and you're obviously a real thinker about the sport as well. So, look, we hope that the next viral moment is one from a successful story.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be. But look, thank you very much for giving us a real look into your career and life to date, and looking forward to 2024.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure.